Alright. You know what time it is. The NASCAR season's over, and fans far and wide are chomping at the bit to post their season highlight reels, recaps, commentaries, you name it. But one is much more inconsequential than the rest. It's this one. It's Ordinal recap time. What's an Ordinal? It's when a car finishes in the same position as its number. Says who? Says me for the last few years. Will this ever catch on? Probably not. Why does man climb the catch fence? Because it's there. That's all the explanation you get. If you want more stats about Ordinals over time or from the last few seasons, feel free to check out the other videos on this channel. Time is money, and I don't have much of either, so without further ado, let's see who pulled off this feat in 2022. And what better place to start than the eventual season champ, Joey Logano. Logano scored the only Ordinal finish I saw in person this year at Pocono in July, where he had a thoroughly unimpressive race en route to a 22nd place finish. Or so I thought as I hopped back into my car, drove through thunderstorms for 3 hours back to New England, crashed for the night, and checked my phone to find out 2 cars got disqualified in post-race tech. And not just any 2 cars, the winner in second place. The Joe Gibbs Racing teammates Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch thought they pulled off a 1-2 finish, but both their cars had modified front fascia, a part which NASCAR source supplied since the start of the season, and teams weren't allowed to manipulate. So oops, Hamlin becomes the first Cup race winner fully disqualified since Emmanuel Zervakis was DQ'd due to an enlarged fuel tank in 1960. As a result, Busch and Hamlin were dropped to last and second to last respectively, and everyone else in the race gained 2 official positions. That allowed Logano to squeeze a top 20 out of a poor day, but it also undid his Ordinal. Thankfully, one driver was able to capitalize on the boost in his place, Kyle Larson, who won the first stage of the race but was a lower top 10 car most of the day. The DQs at Pocono essentially let Larson walk away with the crown of the most Ordinal driver in 2022. He had 3 total, the other 2 coming at Richmond, where he faded out of the top 3 late on worn tires, and at Bristol, where he battled strong but scraped the wall towards the end of the race. 9 spots behind him, Chase Briscoe also Ordinaled at Bristol, and though 14th isn't exactly a great day, it sure beats embarrassing himself as badly as he did in a dirt race there earlier in the year, making a bonsai move into the final corner and spinning himself and race leader Tyler Reddick just about 200 yards from the finish line. That would have been Reddick's first Cup win, and as a Reddick fan, let me tell you, it stung. Watching Kyle Busch, his soon-to-be replacement in the number 8 car, fluke into his only win of the season in the process was even worse. But my man had his day and then some, eventually scoring that first Cup dub at Road America in July, a track which Reddick had Ordinaled on the year prior. The only Ordinal there this year was, coincidentally, Chase Briscoe, who won Stage 1, but as is often the case with road courses, stage breaks played havoc with the pit strategy, and he wasn't really a contender for most of the day. As for Reddick, he got his one and only stage win of 2022 late in the season, taking the final chronological Ordinal of the year at the Charlotte Roval. He scored points in both stages and was running top 3 in the closing laps until he accidentally spun out the sport's most popular driver. Sorry. Go figure, that driver, Chase Elliott, scored the first chronological Ordinal of the year 7 months earlier at Las Vegas, where he was by far the least impressive of the 4 Hendrick Motorsport Chevys. The next time the series hit a, quote, normal mile-and-a-half track would be at Kansas in May, where Ryan Blaney finished 12th, 1 year almost to the day after his most recent prior Ordinal last year at Dover. And Kevin Harvick dove for cover a few times at Darlington, but he made it through that race's chaos en route to a 4th place finish. After starting from the rear, he's probably glad he climbed that high, but the same couldn't be said for his other Ordinal this year at Sonoma, which saw him set back late by a 20-second pit stop, and he was none too happy about it.
I swear to God, we look like the biggest bunch of f***ing wankers every week on pit road. Took a chance to win and just totally f***ing blew it.
But hey, you win some, you lose some. It's a fact of racing Harvick knows well as the most tenured active driver in the Cup garage come the end of the season, and that career has paid off in Ordinals too. His 2 this year place him in a tie for the 3rd most Ordinals of all time, with Brad Keselowski, who shockingly didn't Ordinal at all this year for the first time since 2009. But enough about these geezers. 2022 may not have been an exceptionally fruitful year for the overall number of Ordinals, but we saw 7 drivers score their first ones. That's tied for the most of any season since 1969. Gave us 11. All 3 drivers contending for Rookie of the Year honors Ordinaled. Austin Cindric scored his first at the Indy Road Course, giving the number 2 car its 99th all-time Ordinal. He'll continue to pilot that car next year, and could make it the first car number to Ordinal 100 times. Finishing second stings, but finishing second to last stings more, as Todd Gilliland found out at Watkins Glen, where he abruptly surrendered the race lead due to a broken rear axle and promptly landed in the garage. This year's other rookie, Harrison Burton, even went 2 for 1, scoring his first Ordinal at Kansas and his second at Darlington, both frankly uneventful days for the mid-pack babyface. But it wasn't just rookies on the circuit getting their first Ordinals. AJ Allmendinger, after nearly 400 Cup starts, finally joined the club at New Hampshire, finishing exactly 1 spot ahead of frequent Ordinaler Chris Buescher. Both Allmendinger and his full-time teammate Justin Haley scored their first Ordinals of their respective numbers since 2016. AJ's was the first since Greg Biffle's final run at Phoenix, while Haley's was the first for the number 31 car since Ryan Newman crashed out at Indianapolis. Coincidentally, both races for that number 31 car were, at the time, the 2 least fan-approved points races in the history of reporter Jeff Gluck's Was It a Good Race poll. That spring Martinsville race was just flat-out not good. Its only redeeming quality was being the most Ordinal-friendly race of the year, with the number 3 of Austin Dillon and the number 20 of Christopher Bell joining Haley as the event's year-high 3 Ordinals. Not to worry, though. Martinsville put on a better race in the fall, where Bell scored a last-ditch win to advance to the championship for an oh my god, what is that? Yeah, that happened. Ross Chastain pulled what's been called the Hail Melon, intentionally throwing his car into 5th gear and the wall to pass 5 cars in a single set of turns and advance alongside Bell to compete for the championship. The move went truly viral, shining a brighter spotlight on NASCAR than anything I can remember in recent times, and the surge in popularity helped soften Ross's growing reputation as an erratic klutz. He first showed those colors this year back at Circuit of the Americas, where he battled aggressively with Allmendinger and Alex Bowman on the final lap and walked away with he and Trackhouse Racing's first win, and first Ordinal in the process. Hell, it was even the first for COTA, which was just added to the NASCAR schedule in 2021. And though Ross tangled with fan favorites, elder statesmen, and even track limits throughout the rest of the year, his second win/Ordinal was a thing of grace, simply holding his line straight while the seas parted around him on the final lap at Talladega. Ross is clearly a rising star, but he's not a champion yet. The same can no longer be said about Zane Smith, who won his first Truck Series title this fall and signed on to go part-time racing in Cup in 2023. He got a sneak preview of the series this past summer in a one-off substituting for Chris Buescher, who was sidelined with COVID, and in that one attempt, he did the whole thing that matters. He Ordinaled. Despite his relative inexperience, despite getting spun on pit road, despite the many things that could have gone awry in Cup's debut race at Gateway, this relief trucker went out there and, for the time being, gave himself a 100% Ordinal finish rate. How rare is that? Well, it's rare enough. Zane became just the 33rd driver to Ordinal in their first start, and through this offseason, he'll remain one of only 11 drivers to currently boast a 100% Ordinal rate. 10 of those 11 only started one race. The outlier was Rick DeLewis, who Ordinaled in 2 Arizonan races in 1955 just 1 week apart, then never raced in Cup again. How long will Zane's feet last? He's scheduled to attempt the Daytona 500 next season, and he should have some other starts lined up with Front Row Motorsports. We'll see if he can go the way of DeLewis, or if the streak will remain a one and done. So there we have it, 22 Ordinals in 2022. That's tied for the fewest we've had since 2009's 20. 17 races featured an Ordinal finish, just barely less than half the schedule, tying last year, 2011, and 2008 for the least in a season since 2005. Of the 62 drivers to start a Cup race this year, 39 of them could have Ordinaled, only 16 did. What excuse do the rest of you have, huh? Maybe they'll have better luck next year. Either way, we've got a lot to look forward to. Controversial faces going full-time, stars of yore returning, a street course. Is it also too much to ask for some safety improvements and executive transparency? Please? All coming our way in 2023. Till then, have a swell off season, and congratulations once again to our class of 2022 Ordinalers.